detective. Thrill me.
Thanks for joining us again for another episode of the Thrill Me podcast. We're two people light tonight. No Gibbo, no Matty K. Possibly because of the film that we're covering. Would you suggest, Jared?
Unfair.
It's more in our wheelhouse. Let's put it that way. Tonight we're going to cover a bit of Australian horror.
Listen, if I suggested this to Matty, he would have hung up on me. So.
I actually think Gibbo would have been less likely. He'd have been a little more pissed about it. But we're covering Boar from this year. It's by a guy who we covered in his first film a while back now, Charlie's Farm. So it'll be good to get back into an Australian flick. But before we get into that, let's do a little bit of a run through, Jared, about what we've been watching. What have you got on your list?
Right. So Bates Motel season 5 finally hit.
Yep.
Been waiting for that for a while. It hit on Netflix, so I'll finish that. Finish the series. All in all, the series was a big surprise for me because I wasn't sure how much I was going to like it, but I ended up really, really liking it all the way through. Season 5 probably wasn't my favourite, but it still held up a good sort of real good quality, and the acting from start to finish was great. Like the leads were all really, really good, which helps the series out a bit. So yeah, I was happy to finally finish that. A little bit of comedy in there. Back to Andy Samberg and his crew. I call it Tour de Pharmacy.
Tour de Pharmacy. I've been looking for that.
Yeah. It's it was highly amusing.
Yeah.
It's the same old, what you expect from a Samberg picture or something he's involved in. It's very hit and miss, but the hits are solid. John Cena playing a Swedish cyclist called Gustav Ditters, who's been cleared of doping. Just absolute comedy gold. But, they start getting into blues on the track, and Gustav Ditters, who used to be the mild-mannered bloke on the circuit, starts gorilla pressing people, and it's got some very funny parts in it. There's again, top to bottom, it's probably not that great, but it's definitely worth a look, and you'll get enough laughs out of it to definitely justify.
Have you seen the other one?
I started watching
7 Days of Hell?
I haven't finished it. I started watching it. From what I've seen so far, not quite as funny, but I've just got onto Kit Harington's character, who's it's quite funny. They've basically, painted him as an absolute bozo who's just been taught a couple of words to make him sound intelligent. So they just keep showing him in interviews. He just keeps repeating indubitably, responding to every question. So yeah, again, same deal. A few laughs in that. So.
Yep.
I watched Mother.
Oh, Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah.
Javier Bardem.
Yes, it's very out there. Very out there.
Is it a good film? Do you need a degree in psychology to watch it?
Oh, look, you can get certain things from it. Like, I saw parts of what people have read from it, some of the religious things, but there was other parts about, what Jennifer Lawrence's character is supposed to represent that I just didn't get at all. If you're looking for a traditional narrative, you're not going to get it. There's parts of it where you'll just be watching it and just going, what the fuck is happening? Like, it's full on, but I don't know. It's hard to recommend it.
Look,
but if you're interested in it,
you haven't sold me on it. I will say that. Look, when it first came out, and I saw the trailer. I immediately just thought, nah, too highbrow for me.
Yeah,
too over my head. Like something like Get Out was really intriguing, and there was a lot of interesting stuff in that. But it never sailed over my head.
But it still had a narrative.
Had an interesting narrative. It had something, a narrative going through that you could understand.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know, movies like Mother, maybe it's more subjective, maybe it's a bit more art house.
It does have a story there. Like, I mean, we wouldn't be the only ones that, like, there's been well-respected critics that have looked at it and fucking thought it was bullshit. So... Like, it's just, I don't know, it's one of those things where if that's what you like, and me personally, my preference has always been for a traditional kind of narrative. I want some characters and some development and all that sort of stuff, and this isn't necessarily that, or it's presented in a very different way that strays a little too far from what I personally like.
Yeah.
But it still had some things about it that I looked at and said, I really love the way that was shot, or really love the way it looks. It's got some brilliant actors in it. So there's something there, just not particularly my thing.
Not for you?
Not really. I watched the Andre the Giant doco.
So did I.
Yeah?
Loved it.
Yeah, it's good.
Loved it.
It was good. I didn't like it as much as the Ric Flair one, which was funny. It's funny because
of course not.
I think Andre probably had the more interesting life.
No, but Flair had more flair.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
Is what that had.
But and the other thing too is Flair is there to talk about his shortcomings and stuff, whereas Andre is gone. So it's hard to piece together bits and pieces of him talking on. I
got plenty of laughs out of Flair on the Andre documentary too.
Yeah.
I must admit,
it was good. It was really good. I love that sort of stuff, but I guess the difference is there wasn't much new.
No.
For me, because I'm not a mad wrestling fan, but Andre was at the time when I was pretty big into it, and I've read a comic book of his life. I read a comic book sort of representation of his life. So the info wasn't new to me. It was cool to go back and see some of those videos of the real early stuff.
Yeah.
And that's
when he was a lot more trim and he was
and before the gigantism sort of no, well that's not what it's called, but before what he had really taken hold.
Yeah.
But the difference was something like Flair, you had that, and then you had him reliving the glory days and just, loving it, and then you had him breaking down, talking about what a shit father he was and stuff. So that was the kind of thing that Andre probably missed.
Yeah, Andre didn't have the negative. Like most things in throughout his career, he was revered as a wrestler. Yeah, he had some he couldn't really go anywhere. Like, he got hassled a lot, and there was a bit of sort of, people pointing and laughing at him and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why you would. If you saw him in public, I think, I'd be afraid he might pick me up and snap me in half. So, but there wasn't a lot of negatives. He was well revered throughout his career. Anyone who's knocked over 106 beers in a city,
Christ,
that's Australian Hall of Fame.
But see, that's where they one of the reviews I read hit it on the head. They basically said that stuff was great, but then you had the wrestlers all buying into the whole, this is legendary stuff, and there was the only one part was Carrie Elwes talking about. It's kind of sad that was what he did to dull the pain, and he was such a big man that he had to just put away copious amounts. So I could have that felt like that's where it might have mined some of that.
And it was some of it was mythology too. Yeah, there was almost like this mythological.
Yeah, but overall, I loved watching it.
It's like Bernie knocking away 56 beers on the way to England.
Yeah, that's right.
That's pure mythology.
But unfortunately, if Andre did that sort of work, you couldn't just put him in a wheelchair like you did with Booney or Rod Marshall or whoever it was. As they said, Andre collapsed in the fucking foyer and the hotel just said, what are you doing?
Just leave it there.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, mate. Vince McMahon got me. Right in the heart.
Well, that's the first time I've ever seen a bloke cracked up about anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really got me.
Yep.
And I think it's because he said before that Andre blamed him.
Yeah.
For the end of his career.
Yeah.
And basically it ended their friendship.
Yeah.
And their relationship.
And McMahon's made of stone, so to see that was kind
He is made of stone, partially made of ham too, if you watch any wrestling videos he's involved in.
Well, speaking of wrestling videos of Vince McMahon, the best one to watch is where he tears both his bloody, when he comes charging into the ring and he tears both his hammies or something. So he can't stand up, he's got to sit on the ground and start yelling at people. It's piss funny. Check that out.
I'll see if I can track that down and put it on Facebook. Absolute magic. Just magic. No, but McMahon, there's no denying McMahon is a shrewd businessman. Like, I mean, basically, even in that Andre documentary, it kind of explained how it went from being sort of in these little pockets to becoming one, and that's all Vince McMahon.
Well, he broke the system, basically. He broke that territorial system and said, I'm going to go nationwide. And did, and had, wrestlers calling him every name under the sun, and then turning around and saying,
can I get it?
You got a contract.
I'll tell you what, I had to laugh when Old Hogan gave that story about how Andre the Giant farted in the elevator and it sounded like people's skin flapping together.
Whatever you want to say about Hogan, he does have a bit of charisma.
And he delivers when he tells the story. It's a story that you want to hear.
Yeah.
So I really liked that documentary. I thought it was excellent.
It was good, very good. So I watched Teen Titans Go to the Movies.
Yeah, how was that?
Yeah, it was good. It was a bit of fun. If you watch the show, you get, what you expect. It's just like a long episode. It's not the finest work. Some people hate that show anyway, but my kids loved it. Even my son came out and said, yeah, I liked it, but I didn't like it. I was like, yeah, okay, so you're a bit in the middle on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was quite funny. The best thing I got out of it was that they were just taking the piss out of the DCEU and the Marvel DC rivalry and cameos and things like that. No,
because I saw a preview for it before I went and saw something a few weeks back.
Yeah, it was cool. Got what I expected. Watched Night at the Museum again, just because the kids had a movie night. It's actually better than I recall, in terms of movies you can watch with your kids from the recent years, it's kind of one that slips under the radar a bit, but it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Bit of fun. And my final one, which you're just going to be all over, Kickboxer Retaliation.
Ooh.
Yeah.
How was Kickboxer Retaliation?
Look, I'm not going to lie, I've still got to finish the last 20 minutes or so. But
code for shit.
No, look, some of the dialogue and the storylines are just absolutely over the top, ridiculous and stupid. But as soon as a fight breaks out, I'm sitting there going, this is what I paid for, and I'm getting it in spades. It's absolutely everywhere, and the fights are good. Like there's one where Elaine Moisey sort of goes in. I'm butchering that name or whatever. he goes down a prison walkway, and it's essentially his version of like the hallway fight from Daredevil.
Yeah.
But it's the old, martial arts, a lot of kicks, a lot of, one bloke running at you at a time. And then you add in that it seems to be, from what I can tell, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was filmed in Thailand. And from what I've seen of Thai stunt crews, they are fucking insane.
Yeah.
They will just throw their body at off bloody ledges and into walls, and there's these blokes that are fucking throwing themselves down stairwells and shit. And it's awesome to watch. And in every opportunity they get, the ways that they get them together, the fights sometimes are stupid, but every opportunity to match Elaine Moisey with Mike Tyson, or do that sort of fight there, or match him up with real MMA fighters that they've got into the scenes, they get it, and the fight scenes are really, really good. So
you get what you pay for. I was actually
pretty impressed. Yeah. The only thing I wasn't impressed with was Christopher Lambert. Jesus, the guy can't act.
Look, he had some time off.
I don't know what he was doing, man. He wasn't working on his craft, that's for sure.
I don't think he had a craft to start with. Yeah, look, he's not noted as an actor. Strangely enough, he's got a gig in that, in that particular industry. But hey, is that everything?
That's everything.
Okay. Look, I went back to the 80s. Me and my wife had a movie day, all 80s movies. 3 of the films she picked, more in the comedy reign. I hadn't seen them in 15 years, I reckon.
Mm-hmm.
So it was Weird Science.
Yeah.
Bill Paxton.
You used to love that movie. I haven't watched it in about a decade.
Love it. Look, it's not brilliant, but I got a few laughs.
Yep.
Bill Paxton, piss funny, gets turned into a turd at the end.
I've forgotten about that.
And all you ever hear, every time he talks, all you hear is I got plenty of giggles at. Revenge of the Nerds.
Interesting.
Surprisingly, that was the one I enjoyed the most.
Yeah?
Yeah. And the other one was Weekend at Bernie's. It's the least enjoyable of those 3.
Funny, that.
It gets a couple of gags in. I must admit, there's a couple of times where I piss myself.
Yeah.
But it's a one-joke movie.
Yeah.
And it takes so long for Bernie to actually die that it's hard. It's probably almost an hour in.
Do I remember correctly? Was it in that or the sequel? Was there a sequence of where the body was fucking farting or something?
Yeah, no, that's in the sequel. there was some voodoo involved.
Yeah, that'd get
you in the door. But I also threw in Predator and My Bloody Valentine.
Right.
personal faves.
Mm-hmm.
Love them. Can watch them anytime. My wife fell asleep during Predator. Only one of the greatest action movies of all time.
Yeah.
But hey.
It's no weird science, so.
No weird science, yeah. Okay, now I decided to plumb the subcolon area of Amazon Prime after you went
streaming service. Fuck that noise.
I think I was on Lou Diver's streaming service here because I decided to go for Nightmare Beach. What's that, you ask? Well, let me explain.
Well, I'm sure it was next to Rotor in the selection.
Nightmare Beach is kind of like a Italian slasher flick, but it's set in spring break in Miami.
Yeah.
And it involves a lot of people being electrocuted by a dude on a motorbike. And strangely enough, it's got Johnny Saxon and Michael Parks.
Okay.
So I, as soon as I saw them, I kind of thought, hang on, I was expecting, something else. The movie sucks balls.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So it sounds like a more sort of, a less prestigious version of Pieces.
Yeah, you could put it that way. Yes, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good comparison. I prefer Pieces, strangely enough. But yeah, Nightmare Beach, pure shit. I watched a documentary series called The Killing Season, which was all about a series of corpses that were found on Gilgo Beach in Long Island.
I thought we might get a rundown of your weekly viewing that didn't involve a bloody murder series or something once, but there it is.
No, there it is. It's tucked away just under Nightmare Beach. Look, it's not bad. It's not bad. The scariest part about it was they mentioned that in the United States of America there are 17,000 law enforcement agencies, and I'm like, how does anybody know anything?
Yeah.
And no wonder people these serial killers murder someone and then drop them over the state line.
Yeah.
So that was kind of creepy, but other than that, it was pretty. Obviously, Andre the Giant. What's Truth or Dare? Bloomhouse flick that I believe we had bashed mercilessly a few months back. Good. The idea is okay, but it just doesn't do anything with it. It continually changes the goalposts, so the rules change at the whim of whatever scare you're trying to generate.
Yeah.
Oh, we better change the rule. Suddenly you've got to do this. The acting's poor.
Did you pay for this? Possibly.
Let's move on.
I was hanging out. I was waiting.
It was PSN.
Oh, right.
And you know what? Fucking standard def $6. I was hoping, high def 6, standard def 4.
Jesus. Yeah, usually you can save a couple of dollars on standard def.
I got fucking $1. I got a whole box of dice on that.
Yeah, you know what'll happen. It'll be my old thing where,
it'll turn up on Netflix next week.
Yeah. Wait a couple of days and there it is. Stand Netflix, take your pick.
Okay, I also watched the first episode of The Purge TV series. Not bad, but I think I mentioned this to you a couple of days ago. I just don't. It's played out for me. It was a really good idea, and the three movies I feel covered it.
Yep.
I don't know what more we're getting out of this. It just seemed like the same thing.
Well, it seems to be the one in the Blumhouse realm of making really good dollar on small budgets and an interesting idea, but it's the one that's just running with not much. Like, the interesting idea is still there, but it's never been brought out to a really good movie. The closest they got was the second one, I think, and that was because they kind of just...
They went more action-packed.
Yeah, it was more action. I reckon it might be time to just put it away until somebody comes up with a script.
Yeah.
That's the interesting idea, instead of just forcing it out there,
But secondly, the first one had all the subtext, but it wasn't as interesting a film. But I just don't know. I just don't think it's going anywhere. No. Personally, that's me. Great idea. It
seems like what you were saying, in the current political climate in the States, it's probably got some legs, an idea like that,
So,
anyway.
And the last thing was, I watched the first episode of Jack Ryan. Mate, that was excellent.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Krasinski?
Yeah, really, Krasinski got me. His boss is I really like guy by the name of Wendell Pierce, actor. Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah.
And there's a real
He's bloke from The Wire, isn't he?
Yeah, and they strike off each other really well to start with. The first episode was really good, set things up nicely.
Yep.
And we'll see where it goes, but so far it was good. And that's me.
Golden.
All right, let's take a break. And here's the trailer for 2018's Boar.
Okay, cabin fever is officially set in. I suggest the next town we come to, we pull over and get some grub.
Good idea.
Sounds great.
Tearing the fences down there at the old Patterson's farm then.
We found a few sheep too. Something's killed them, yeah.
Well, what, all 9 of them?
There's nothing out there except dust and ruse.
That's a load of shit, Ernie, and you know it. You remember that smash up on the highway coming into town, right? About 12 months ago? They couldn't find the couple. All the police found was the wrecked car. I was driving back from Bob's place in me truck, and I saw something in the paddock, about 300 or 400 metres off, and I hit the spotty on it. It was a boar. Ready?
Boar from 2018, written and directed by Chris Sun, who did Charlie's Farm, and produced by Christine Hulsby. It stars John Jarrett as Ken, Bill Moseley as Bruce, Nathan Jones as Bernie, Simone Buchanan as Debbie, Melissa Couts as Sasha, Hugh Sheridan as Robert, and Ernie Dingo as Ernie. The budget was $3.4 million estimated. It didn't have box office numbers because it was either released to DVD or streaming. I don't know if it went to the cinemas at all.
I didn't see it. Yeah.
And Steve Bisley and Roger Ward, who were both in this film, starred in the original Mad Max, and Nathan Jones, of course, was in Mad Max Fury Road.
There you go.
Bit of trivia. I'm going to go first here. I kind of enjoyed this. Again, I felt it was kind of like an homage to the ozploitation stuff of the 1980s.
Yeah.
Very reminiscent of Razorback. Possibly not as stylishly lensed as Russell Mulcahy, but it did everything pretty well for my liking.
There wasn't as much strobe lighting.
There was that mist and fog and stuff in the air, but he throws basically everything into it. The kitchen sink just gets chucked in. It's gory. It's kind of got a bit of humour. It's a reasonably fun mix. It's let down by dialogue's pretty shit ass, and there's so many unnecessary characters.
Yeah.
I remember just sitting there thinking, my God, who are all these people?
Yeah.
Why do we need like 15 characters?
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, some of them just turn up to either get killed or they kind of disappear.
Well, you expect that to an extent, but yeah, I had a little bit of a problem with that as well.
Out of 5, I give it a 3.
Yep.
I got plenty of time for Chris Sun. You can see that he's moving forward. He's getting better. You know, I'd really like to see what he does next, and I think he's got a big future.
Yeah, well, I landed at a 3 as well. I'm the same. Like, if I see that he's doing a picture, I'm interested. You know, because I think he's got the same sort of sensibilities that we're after. I think you're spot on. I think he was going for some of that ozploitation, a bit of that razorback. To me, the people he gets involved are spot on for what he wants to be doing. But yeah, it's just let down a little bit by the writing. The biggest issue for me is like, whose story is it again? Like, I understand the Boar is like the sell. That's what you're coming to see. But you still need the stories. You still need something there to get invested in. So look, I'm a big supporter of what the guy's doing.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of people doing what he's doing and getting a decent budget like that to put something on screen. And what he gets out of it is pretty bloody good.
Yeah, for 3.4 mil, if that's what they got.
Yeah, he squeezes what he can
every
out of
dollar.
it. Like you said, a bit of laughs. I think he's definitely on the right track. Just the writing needs to be tightened up a little bit, and like I could see him really knocking one of these slashes or monster flicks out of the park.
Yep.
So.
And it'd be very nice to see one homegrown.
Yep.
First things first for me in the likes category, the film looks great. You can see the money on screen. It's distributed by Universal.
Yep.
So,
which was the same with Charlie's Farm, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I don't know if I thought Charlie's Farm was a little bit more independent. I don't know if it ever got.
I think it did get distributed by somebody.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, I'm pretty sure.
But Universal's pretty big, and they've obviously picked it up.
Yep.
So, but it looks great. Like, even if you're comparing apples to apples with Charlie's Farm, it looks better than Charlie's Farm.
Yeah, I think it did too. So, like, the first thing I noted was that opening scene. It's got this really nice blend. As you said, it looks great. It's got this really nice blend of that Aussie kind of rural town look with your classic monster movie. You know, the shots of the moon with the clouds sweeping across it. They blend in together really well.
I really liked it. I think that you can tell that, you know, once again there's a step forward for him.
Yeah.
And he's showing that, you know, he's capable of doing more.
Yeah, totally.
With more money.
Yep.
Look, a decent cast of known Australian actors.
Well, for mine, the mix of actors is spot on.
Everywhere I looked, I saw someone I knew.
Yeah, exactly. And, but the thing is, it's got like it's the perfect little mix of, like, he's got the genre names. He's got Bill Moseley on board for a couple of these now. John Jarrett's another genre name. Nathan Jones got a little bit of that cred too now. Yeah. Then he gets the little ozploitation nods with Roger Ward and Steve Bisley, like you mentioned. But Bisley again is a solid Australian actor that you know has done plenty of work. More Aussie mainstays like Sheridan and Ernie Dingo. But then he sneaks in those names that you know but you haven't seen in a while, like Simone Buchanan or Melissa Takaus. And so the whole time you're looking at people that you know, and you're kind of getting a little bit of a... Yeah. It's a fun mix, you know?
And I also think he did a good job, certainly with regards to Hugh Sheridan, as playing a little bit against type.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
He'd always been the clean-cut sort of character. He was a fucking bozo in this, but he was piss funny. I got a couple of real big laughs out of him.
Yeah.
There's a heap of gore.
Can I just, as its own like, the biggest laugh I got out of him?
Bisley?
No. Bisley was quite...
Bisley's only line, or whatever he does there when he drives past, just had me in stitches.
Yeah. A little bit unsavoury at the end there, but it was quite amusing when they start saying, "Oh Jesus, he's got bloody dementia or something," as he's fucking hooning off down the road. The best line of the thing for me was when Hugh Sheridan's arguing with the brother, and then they stop, and then you just kind of hear him quietly go, "Hey, you can't be a virgin because your face is fucked." I was like, where'd that come from? Quite amusing.
I think that he got quite a few laughs for me. Yeah. He's that pure asshole, but I kind of got... He's like Trent at Friday the 13th.
Yeah, look, he was bordering... Like, some of it was just a little bit too, you know, down the line, like running with some things that you've seen, and you're just like, oh, that's not all that funny. But then he'd mix it in with a line or two where that did have you sort of cracking up. And,
it's just the opening sequence when you see him, and you just immediately start talking about, remember that thing you used to do to me or not? and then he starts making all these noises and stuff.
Yeah. I also liked Bill Moseley trying to drop the Aussie lines.
Yeah.
He's driving in there and he's like, wow, I could eat the crotch off a low-flying duck. And they start looking at him going, it does Hugh Sheridan's like, what the fuck is he talking about? It just doesn't, he just can't nail the kind of, can't nail it as we would expect.
There's plenty of gore.
There he is, yeah.
They really throw the gore in there, which is great. You know, you needed a hardcore type of film. You couldn't sort of cut back.
Yeah.
And they deliver in spades.
Yep.
I actually think the Boar effects, both practical and CG, are actually pretty passable.
Yeah, there's only a handful of times where the CGI looks a bit ropey.
Yeah.
But they're at the parts where it's like, I don't know how else you were going to do it. The practicals were going to be really expensive. So for 90% of it, the way that he's shot around it is really bloody good.
But even when it was in daylight, it looked all right.
Yeah. You could tell when they had the boar's head, like you could tell a lot of the practical was the boar head.
It was
body
like a puppet.
that couldn't move much.
Yeah.
So he'd shoot like close up of that or on the side. You just see the side of it and the fangs going or whatever. But then you get that POV shot to give it the movement that the prosthetics obviously didn't have.
Yeah.
And the CGI was sparing enough that I gave it a pass for the most part. But yeah, I was pretty impressed with what they did with the effects. It was well shot around it.
Yeah. The opening Boar attack is really solid because they kind of tease you with how big it is.
Yeah.
And they show you its mouth very briefly, and then it just drags him away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like that. You just got to slowly drip feed the meeting of when we first actually see it in full, which is a little bit later on.
Yep. I don't know why, but John Jarratt and Roger Ward bickering.
Yeah, I know, like a married couple.
They were piss funny.
Like, it'll take us fucking 2 hours to walk over there.
Oh, you know, I better bring the sandwiches. I'll bring some piss.
Oh, you're going to bring the whole bloody can.
Yeah, they were good. And then it extends into when they find the bodies, their argument as to, for why they should split up is kind of, you half buy it because Roger Ward's there going, oh no, we got to stay together, and Jarrett's there going, we stay together, we're both fucked. They start kind of giving you something and you sort of like, oh yeah, he's got a point. They've both got the differing point of views. You actually kind of buy that, but I got quite a few laughs out of those two.
Yeah, that was quite good. That whole sequence where they are out in the wilderness, at a campfire with a gut full of piss, and then they kind of like, we better go and check this out.
Yeah, there's smatterings of what you were talking about, the average dialogue of just sort of squeezing in a bit of clumsy exposition work about John Jarratt's wife and how that comes out. But for the most part, I really enjoyed those two.
Yeah,
on screen together.
Plays off against each other nicely. Death by boar's tusk through the back of the head. Was it through the back of the head or was it through the back of the throat?
The girl.
I think it
was through it, but like it was.
I think it must have been through her throat because she's still alive.
Yeah.
But that was pretty nasty stuff.
And it was one of the better kind of sequences. Like you mentioned it, there was a little bit of a problem about the boar. Suddenly being able to sort of sneak up on people, and the only time in the movie that you didn't hear the and the growling and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, the fact that when he turns off the torch and brings it back on.
Nathan Jones busting out Vanilla Ice in the truck. Awesome.
Good.
I loved it. I loved it. It was great. It just sort of broke up because by that stage you'd already the Boar had already come into play and you'd seen plenty of carnage.
Yeah.
But then that kind of comes in and it kind of feels like really comedic, but it's kind of, it's really funny to watch because huge looking dude bust out some Vanilla Ice moves. I just sort of kind of felt it was almost like let's just take it back a notch for a second and have a bit of a laugh.
Yeah, and try to sort of, try to lull you into something
bang,
for another scare, but I bought in. I was laughing. You mentioned Hugh Sheridan playing against type.
Yeah.
I actually thought John Jarratt did that moment when he finds the girl is really good. Like him playing against, we're so used to him as Mick Taylor now. Seeing him do something like that again, it's like he did it really
He actually
well.
turned out to, like, his character was a nice, gentle sort of cat. He wasn't There were little moments where he sort of speaks and you sort of go, is he going to suddenly turn nasty any second? You know, like he's got his hair trigger.
Yeah.
But I thought he was pretty good.
Well, when the shit hits the fan, he's sort of, the colours sort of show, and he gives you something that you just completely weren't expecting.
Yeah.
So casting again, like you cast an actor like that, and it's a real kind of, it's got impact.
Yeah. Bill Moseley having his head ripped off.
Unexpected.
And you know what? I do love that bit where they go, what's that? And look over, there's a fucking 3-ton boar standing there.
And then Moseley's there going, oh, look at it.
Start moving.
Yeah, out
quickly.
Yep.
But yeah, that kind of happens really fast and it kind of charges up on you, and next thing you know, his bloody head's been removed.
Yeah.
I liked it.
I like the old bloke telling the story about how he saw the boar. Growing up in Australia, you spend some time around a pub like that at some stage, and he's just absolutely nailed the vibe of a bloke telling a story like that. Like, I watched that scene.
Shout out to the Charney Tavern.
Yeah, Girling Tavern, the old Mackey's Hotel in my dad's hometown. Like, I actually, I watched that scene and I was just sitting there thinking, this is fucking Mackey's Hotel. Dad goes back. I've seen blokes tell something like that. Like, obviously not like that, but I've seen blokes sit there in the Mackey's Hotel and swear black and blue that they saw the Tassie Tiger, and they'll sit there and tell the story just like that, and then someone from over the bar will be there going, oh yeah, how many did you have? And, just like happens in that scene. But then the funniest part for me was how he rolls with it. Like, he's heard all this shit before, so instead of getting fired up and I saw it, all this, he's sitting there and they're taking shots and he's just laughing it off and rolling with it. And they start talking about the nudie run or whatever, and he's up on the bar pretending to show his gear. And then the best part of it for me was, for some reason, Ernie Dingo gets behind the bar and they go, oh, it's Ernie Shout, and Dingo goes, yeah, black fellas drink for free, all you white guys double price. And that hit the old bloke that's telling the story just goes, oh, I'm nipping outside for a quick suntan. I think that whole scene just really
worked for you?
Hit the mark.
Yeah.
Big time.
It was. It did very much felt like what you should expect.
Yeah, and it was one of those bits where it's kind of like, I don't know how that scene, if I went back and watched it, I don't know how that scene works overall, but it's just, for someone in Australia, it just hits the mark as like, yeah, this is kind of what it
Classic
is.
Sort of Aussie small town pub.
Yeah.
And that's the luxury you get with a director who's an Australian.
Yeah.
He knows. He would have been in these places. Not when you get an overseas director trying to direct a film set in Australia. You usually then get cliches and you get...
Yeah, definitely. You get Mission Impossible too.
That's correct, you do. Nathan Jones taking the Boar on fisticuff style.
Oh, I loved it.
Loved it.
Absolutely loved it. I was watching it and I'm thinking, it's like a
I actually
circus
felt
show.
that kind of should have been the end.
Yeah, in a way I did too.
1-on-1.
Yeah.
Punch it out.
I thought, it was just like, it's funny because obviously Jones was a wrestler and that's what it felt like. You got, the monster versus the monster. Like, it just kind of felt like that's where it was heading eventually. And it was something different because no one else stood a chance. But here's Jones whipping the knife out and then, he gets taken down, but he starts throwing punches at it. And, that was really, it was thrilling. Like, it was exciting
in a way,
to watch.
He kind of should have been the hero.
Yeah, well, I don't know, because it was just...
we'll get to that but to me, he kind of felt that way when we got down to
because he was the cat that ticked the boxes for the heroic kind of actions there, but he had no story. This is the problem.
Well, the problem was most of them didn't, unfortunately. Running into the Boar head on with a truck.
Yeah, it was
pretty spectacular.
Cool. It was pretty cool.
Although I would assume that when you hit a 100-kilogram kangaroo, your car's in the shit. I think if you're hitting a 500 kilogram boar at speed,
Yeah.
even with a bumper bar, the whole car's being wrecked.
You're pretty screwed.
But it was kind of cool how it sort of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was expecting that they were going to set it on fire or something.
Yeah.
I was watching when they were lighting that up, and I was like, this looks a bit like Predator or something. That's kind of what I was expecting. But then, yeah, so that coming out.
That kind of came out
Left
of the
field.
blue, and I liked it. I thought it was a good way to sort of end it up.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you got any other likes?
No, that was pretty much it for me. Yeah.
Okay. Dislikes. The dialogue it feels stilted. It at times it just feels like they're trying to fill the silence or the dead air.
Yeah.
We have to talk.
There's a lot of the funny lines. There's a lot of trying to come out with those really kind of Aussie.
But some of that's
lines.
okay.
Some of it works, but then it gets mixed in with. It suffers a little bit from trying to do that too much, and then when you get the exposition and all that sort of stuff, it's a little bit clumsy, and you don't really get the character development out of that.
No.
That you're looking for.
And to me, the least sort of acceptable parts of that dialogue were the attempts at exposition.
Well, you get
getting married and all that stuff.
Yeah.
As I watched that, I just kind of felt.
Well, you get the scenes like one of the prime examples for me was when John Jarratt and Melissa DeCouts are there. Obviously, they're father and daughter, and they're talking about the family when they come into town.
Yeah.
And it starts off like a really kind of. The thing for me is it seems like a good way to get it out. Like it's them standing in the pub, as she points out. I'm the pub owner. There's nothing in town I don't know about. Like, so you get this idea that's pretty solid. He's gonna get a bit of explanation out as to who these people are, but the way that it comes out is, as you said, it's so stilted. It's like, oh, that's so and so. That's what's his name's sister. So that must be her kids. What are their names again? And then she says the names, and the way the information comes out just sounds really unnatural. When he's put it in a situation that you think could be really natural, the way that it comes out could come out really natural, but then it gets stilted. The same thing happens with him and Roger Ward around the fire. That's the perfect opportunity. A few beers in, and he talks about his wife. Oh, she's so much. He talks about Melissa DeCouts. Oh, she's so much like her mother. That's where it probably would come out, but then when it does come out, it just sounds unnatural. So it's kind of
You couldn't get invested in characters because I don't think the dialogue stepped up and gave you anything for them.
Yeah.
And on top of that, nobody really had an arc.
No.
Like, what were the arcs?
Well, we seemed like we were going with the family, and at the start, I would have said to you, "This is Hugh Sheridan. He's the protagonist."
No.
I don't know why. It just felt that way in the car.
So the moment he opened up with, remember that stuff he used to do to me on the way to Sydney? You felt this is the perfect hero for us.
No, but I thought this is the guy. I thought, well, he's like the
starts off as raving asshole.
Yeah, but he starts like a bit of a goose. He's obviously, once he gets to Nathan Jones's place, he's obviously, oh, you're the city boy. Whereas Bill Moseley's like that, yeah, I've met this bloke a few times, I'll put you under my wing. So it felt like it was his story.
Yeah.
A little bit of Simone Buchanan as well. Felt like maybe it could have been a little bit of her story. Felt like there was going to be subplots there. But then we go off with John Jarratt for half an hour and we don't see the other guys. So that half hour, as much as I enjoyed it, it's
had no
not
real
much
connection
of a story.
to it.
Yeah, as you said, there's not really an arc. It's these two guys just encountering the boar. Then when we get back to the family, it gets all confused again because you see, we get to Bill Moseley and Hugh Sheridan talking about marriage. Then Sheridan pulls the move of pushing Moseley over and taking it off, which admittedly was
funny.
Yeah.
Moseley gets his head ripped off. Then Sheridan gets dispatched 5 minutes later.
Well, that's the thing. Immediately, as soon as he pushes Moseley over, you're like, okay, so it's not his story. He's done. It's finished.
Definitely not Moseley's because he's
definitely not Moseley's
because
he's dead. Then Sheridan gets mowed down, and you're like, where are we going here? Like, so we go back to Simone Buchanan, who hasn't really had anything.
Meanwhile,
going.
Nathan Jones is hovering somewhere in the background after he He got taken out, so
Yeah.
where does he fit?
And he kind of takes, as you said, front position for a while, as he's the guy equipped to do this. Then when he gets in a bit of strife, I thought, okay, well, I don't mind. It's the girls. He's going to go with, the ones that you traditionally look at as I said, Nathan Jones, huge man. He's got all the skills, but the girls are going to be the ones that tough it out. Which I thought, okay, well, I can run with this.
Yeah.
But by the time you get there, it's not earned because we don't know whose story it really is.
And look, the girls end up killing the boar. Understood, but it just felt like, how did we get here? In the end, too, there wasn't really much of a chase. You know, like the boar just dispatched people at will.
Yeah, and then showed up to dispatch them.
And Jones and the boar, that was good because that felt like we're taking each other on.
Yeah,
like it's I'm not going to just lay down and die for you. I'm going to take you on, and that was cool.
Yep.
But I felt that the ending should have been a bit of cat and mouse, a chase through the bush, trying to outsmart it, fire, bring the fire in that way, trying to trap it, something like that.
Yeah.
I know it sounds like Predator, but basically,
well, you could have got just something more than just encountering it. Like, yeah, I get what you're saying.
It just kind of reappeared, and it was on their ass again.
Yeah.
And then, really, the only reason it gets killed is because Melissa Couch just appears in the truck and just runs over it.
Yeah.
Which was cool, but again, there's just nothing earned. I didn't feel like you earned anything by the end of it.
Yeah.
I said to you before, and you mentioned it, but the boar is it's a huge beast, a huge animal, but it seems to just come out of nowhere. Nobody hears it.
Yeah.
And I know you got to suspend disbelief, but early on it set the scene that you could hear it.
Yeah.
That was part of the tension they were trying to build was this sound going, and you're wondering where it is, and it's dark. But then in daylight, it's tiptoeing out of nowhere.
Yeah, well, it still worked because, as you said, it was night time. Some of these people weren't equipped; they weren't spotting or anything like that. So you got caught unawares. Yeah. But there's a couple of times
in the daytime, it was going into stealth mode.
Yeah. Well, maybe it was a Predator. Maybe it had cloaking technology, dude.
But I found that a little bit hard to swallow. Too many characters.
Yeah.
So coming back, wrapping back around.
I think these would have worked if you had a couple more people in, say, the Ernie Dingo capacity, where it's essentially a cameo. He's got a couple of lines.
Yeah.
If you scale some of those guys back, even John Jarratt and Roger Ward, as much as I like them, if you have them around for a bit of that comedy relief, but on the peripheral of someone else's story, they still work for me. I'm happy to have them there. Like, they would be fine in the movie, but we got caught up with them and nobody else for half an hour.
See, to me, you had to pick your poison, right?
Well, you do, but see, what I'm saying is you can still have those guys, because what happened is you
scale them back.
Yeah.
You bring them back. They are in short bursts early on to show you the pub and the life and soothsayer. They can give you the shit that they saw. But then you're into family mode from then. Yeah,
and if you see those guys, you're cutting back to them. You're going family and then them family. The thing for me is you had a handful of fodder. You had like 6 or so characters that are just there to get dispatched very quickly. But then you had John Jarratt and Roger Ward, who essentially turned into fodder, but we had them on screen for half an hour and nobody else.
Yeah.
So it sort of took away from the people that you should have been with.
To me, in a way, as I said, you pick your poison. You either have the family as the key, with those other guys scaled right back.
Well, that's where you got to be.
Another way of doing it, if you wanted to be lean and mean and try and sort of make it a little more, because you need the family, you needed the fodder. It was exploitation. This is exploitation.
Well, this is the thing. Jarratt and Ward's characters would have worked fine. Had you not talked much about them, his wife and things like that, had you not, you could have pulled back on them finding the other campers. You might not have even needed the campers getting killed themselves. You might have just had Jarratt and Ward discovering the camp as they did, and then bringing it around that way, that they get split up and rounded up, like...
I mean, again...
Because essentially they're fodder, so you get rid of the fodder and just use Ward and Jarrett.
And all your show is aftermath.
Yeah.
There's people who are obviously out here. To me, it could have been done that way with Jarrett and Ward and almost like a lean sort of survival style film, right? If you drop those if you drop the family characters, but you needed all that because that's your B grade schlock that they were going for. You know, you needed a ton of fodder, you needed the family dynamic, you needed all that, but they didn't pick it well. So for 45 minutes, you've got one whole story that is essentially John Jarrett's life on screen. You get 45 minutes, you see the family at the start, but then they disappear for a lengthy period, then they reappear, and then the movie's about the family. And so it's kind of like you didn't really... It's almost like two shorts stuck together. And they didn't really meld them together well. Mind you, you also had the pub patrons who kept cutting back to. So that was like another storyline or another crew.
But see, they were alright. I didn't mind. They were in small doses. And I felt like maybe you could have had the family having dinner at the pub that night.
To introduce that
connection
stuff,
with Melissa DeCouts and her just sort of offhandedly mentioning, oh yeah, Dad's out with whatever. And
so you didn't need all the intro to Jarrett. His intro could have come sitting by the fire with Roger Ward out on the plains,
somewhat,
knowing that Melissa DeCouts had already told us who he was.
Yeah, well, these are just ideas that, you know, I just felt they just needed to tie that stuff together a little bit more.
Yeah.
And like you said, scale back Jarrett's stuff maybe.
It didn't make it bad, it just made it a little bit clumsy the way it was kind of cut together.
It's not like watching one of the real sort of... like if you're looking at Final Girls in horror, a lot of them have an arc or something that you can get into and say, this is our girl. She's the one who we've been following the whole way. This one that just didn't have... I didn't know who was going to be there and who wasn't. And
no one was traumatised by anything. No one was coming back from an experience. No one had seen the Boar when they were a kid or something like that. You know, like you needed something
to just tie it all together. I think, yeah. And
it's because they didn't really pick a protagonist. They kind of just jumped around, which was fine. Fine enough in the sense that the Boar was what you were there for. You were there to see the Boar go nuts and smash and kill everything.
Yeah. Great.
But a really good, even a B-movie schlock, a good one has characters you give a shit about.
Yeah.
And you didn't really give a shit about these.
Well, it was halfway there because I enjoyed them on screen.
Yeah.
Like you said, they got the comedy, they got, you know...
There were little bursts of great stuff.
Yeah, but it was just, there was nothing to really ride the waves of, I guess.
My last dislike was I just felt this is kind of a little bit of a cheat that you bring back two characters that we just assumed they were dead.
Yeah.
And there was no need to bring them back. Like it didn't really add anything. It was unnecessary. It was a 1 second sequence that we saw that they were back.
Yep.
And then we went to the end. So it was kind of like a bit of a cheat. Like to me, knowing that the Boar kills Jones is, it shows how dangerous it was.
Yeah.
Because, it just took out your biggest and baddest that you've got.
Yeah. Well, the son too, like that was kind of...
They were trying to go for an emotional moment.
Everything was, it just felt unearned, like we said. Her losing his son should have been kind of heartbreaking. And it felt like it was going for that, but it didn't quite hit. And then when he comes back, you're supposed to be... Yes, you're supposed to get this burst of emotion, but it just wasn't there.
But again, you didn't know him.
Yeah.
So you couldn't really get emotional or invested.
The only things I knew about him were that he had that quick chat with Nathan Jones, can we bring the guns?
Yeah.
Which was actually I really liked that when they were talking about, can we bring the guns out? And she goes, you know how I feel about guns. And that's a really simple, really good explanation as to why you aren't loaded to the teeth.
Yeah.
When you're going out there, But beyond that, I didn't know that kid. Yeah. He had nothing to really give you. And there was something there. His connection with his uncle, his connection with Nathan Jones was really something. I thought, this is going to go places, but it didn't really.
Yeah. Any other dislikes for you?
No, I don't want to be. I don't want to be.
No, I don't want to kick the shit out of it because to me, this movie's about entertainment. You're talking about B-movie schlock. Now you think back and saying that I compared it to Razorback. That's exactly what Razorback was. If you watch Razorback again, it's probably similar. There wasn't a lot of great fleshed out characters. In fact, there's one of the biggest drongos ever put on celluloid in Australia in Razorback.
Yep.
But this had a likability and a fun to it that I think at the end of the day, probably, in defence of Chris Sun, I think he was probably looking at, look, this is schlock. This is what I got to serve up.
Yeah,
I've got to serve up a certain amount of sloppy joes. I haven't got time for beautiful burgers. I've just got to make this.
You don't really have time to. You don't have time to fucking cook the prime rib. So
I haven't
sloppy joes tonight. I hear what you're saying for sure, but the thing for me is I just feel like the rest of the stuff is there. He's got a really good eye for those, like you said, the movie looks really good.
Yep.
And he's shot around the prosthetic effects really well. I think he's got a good eye for this shit. And I feel like if there's just a tight little story in there, he's going to knock one out of the park. If there's a tight little story with some really polished dialogue, it's going to be an absolute gem.
Yeah, agreed. I think he's got a lot of promise. He's very, very capable. That's now 2 movies now that I both thought were pretty good. On very limited budgets. He's getting, obviously, Universal have come in and swooped this one up, so there might be a connection with them. He might get a bigger budget and he might get the opportunity to really push forward with something good.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that he's using Australian talent. And it's an Australian horror film that looks very good. Like, that could have gone in cinemas.
Yeah, totally.
It's not a even though it's directed DVD, it didn't look it. No. So I appreciate what he's doing, and I really hope that he gets the opportunity to make a few more of them.
Yeah, totally.
So that's Boar from 2018, and we're on a bit of a slew of more recent films, aren't we? Mm-hmm. We have got The Meg coming up. We've talked about that a bit.
A little bit, yeah.
But it's also from 2018. Plus, we will be doing The Predator pretty much as quick as we possibly can.
Well, we can work around your hectic schedule.
I'm sitting in the theatre, taking in
an abstract
art project. We will definitely do The Predator as soon as possible.
Yeah.
We're basically all trying to get and see it on Thursday or Friday, and then we'll knock one out on it. Reviews so far, solid. Nobody's bashing the shit out of it.
Yeah.
But there are problems, obviously. It's not the be-all, end-all of Predator films by the sound of the reviews.
No.
But they're still pretty good.
Enjoyable.
I think it'll definitely stick in our alley.
Bit of action, bit of humour by the sounds.
The reviews coming out about Halloween, though, have been stellar.
Yeah,
absolutely stellar.
I've actually only seen, funnily enough, one that didn't love it, and it was from one of the girls from Faculty of Horror. Who
really?
I'm very, very big on their work. I think they're really, really good.
She didn't like it?
She said that Gordon Green and Kenny Powers have are obviously fans and have nailed the look and everything, but she felt it was a little bit directionless.
Really?
That was the last review I read before I came here. Everything else has just been raving about it. So I looked at that and I thought, well, that's a
most
bit
of the reviews I read only sort of
been
mentioned the issue of a subplot involving a sort of a Dr. Loomis type character that they felt just did not work in any way.
Yep.
But other than that, they said that it's just really well done.
Yeah. Which I was, as I said, that was the last review. I read that just before I came over here, so that was fresh in the mind. But aside from that, I've seen probably 10 that have just absolutely gone ape shit over it. Which is
8s, 9s, stuff like that. Everyone's been really impressed with it. So hopefully that's.
Are we going to experience a burst of horror sequels now?
I guarantee you we will.
Is Kenny Powers going to become the new John Carpenter? Kenny Carpenter.
Don't you go knocking Kenny Powers. Shouldn't call him Kenny Powers anyway.
What?
Kenny McBride. Alright, well...
Kenny McPowers, sorry.
So we will get to the Predator.
Yes.
And we will get it out as quick as we possibly can. If you want to get in contact with us, send us an email at thrillme@iinet.net.au. Like us on Facebook, Thrill Me Podcast Australia. At Podomatic at thrillme.podomatic.com. Or on Instagram at thrillme podcast. Now, Instagram's going gangbusters. We've got 1,000 followers.
Where'd they come from?
I don't know. But our social media rep is handling all that stuff, so no wonder we're getting people to follow us. Make sure you rate and review us on iTunes and Podomatic, as it helps to spread the word. Next episode, we will release the Meg. We will finally get down to it. We've all watched it, so we will release it as the next episode after this one, or with the Predator sort of sprinkled in there somewhere as well. So we'll have a few. We should have an extra episode for you over the next 2 weeks. But until then, take it easy, and we'll catch everyone later. Cheers.
Find the podcast at Podomatic or on iTunes. Don't forget to rate and review. Like us on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia, or contact us at thrillme, all one word, all lowercase, at iinet.net.au.